How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the channel. Or welcome to the channel if you are finding this for the very first time. My name is TJ, and you might recognize me as the guy who puts a voice to Slowpokes in a bunch of Draft League videos. Whether that be the ending of Uzi's BUBL Finals video.
And even though I couldn't take this one home, I can honestly say that I got no regrets.
Hey Uzi, big fan. I hate to be dropping in on you like this, but if you had Endeavor Palafin, as I've been reliably informed was on earlier builds, didn't you just win?
Oh, motherfucker!
Or that one time where we did a video related to Smoke on Draft and a Wi-Fi project that ended up on Joey's channel. The less said about that, the better, huh? Anyways, guys, welcome to my draft analysis for SPL D-League. This is my first Wi-Fi project that I have ever taken part in. This is my first Wi-Fi league ever. For those of you who don't really know me too well, I've been a Draft League player for the guts of the last 10 years, predominantly on the Showdown side of things. So this is a fairly big step for me in terms of doing something new. A lot of this stuff I kind of touched on in the announcement video that I stuck up a couple weeks ago, but there's a few more things that I need to stick in as stuff that I didn't quite know at the time before we kind of dive right in to the draft that I managed to put together, which is a team I'm really proud of. Also, just a heads up, this is actually a redo. I had some major technical difficulties with my initial video, so hopefully this is still, adequate. Might be a little bit late. Sorry, SK. Hope you understand. But yeah, just to kind of start with those couple of caveats. So I am a part of a team known as the Take Heart Foundation, which is coached by Hoodlum Scrafty, or Hoodlum McCallum. Now, the reason for this is because, as I think we all know by now, SPL likes their gimmicks, in quotations. So for this D-League, the gimmick is that there is 4 Head Honchos, which are former SPL coaches, and so each of the 12 SPL D-League coaches are split into 4 teams of 3. This means that you will not face your teammates during the regular season, and it also means that the strongest team is the team that gets to pick their playoff opponents for round 1, which is a bit different from the typical Wi-Fi League norm, where the first seed gets to pick their own opponent, and then you work your way down from there. So, it introduces a nice little aspect into the whole thing, on top of, the idea of people being able to improve their content and get involved, and also potentially be in the SPL main season. Who knows? There's gotta be one. But yeah, no, it's I'm a part of the Take Heart Foundation, as I said. Shoutouts to Nate Wants to Bottle, because when I think of Take Heart, I don't think of the wrestling stuff. I think of bloody Take Heart Records. And Nate Wants to Bottle's the GOAT. But yeah, so it is myself, it is Novax, and it is Standard as part of the Take Heart Foundation. Anyways, that is the caveats out of the way. So without further ado, let's hop right into what team I drafted. So I ended up with the 3rd pick overall in this draft, and that was something I was really happy about, because it meant that I was going to be guaranteed one of Iron Valiant, Masquerada, or Great Tusk. Now, I assumed it was going to be Great Tusk, which I was more than happy with, because what I've kind of noticed is a lot of people prioritize speed these days. But when Great Tusk went 2nd overall, it was an easy Masquerada choice for me. I don't really think I need to talk too much about how good Masquerada is as a Mon. The speed tier is absolutely phenomenal at 123. The dual stabs of Knockoff and Flower Trick, really reliable. Flower Trick is guaranteed crit, being able to kind of get through defense boosts, which can be annoying. And then you combine that with its coverage, its access to U-turn, triple axle, play rough when you need it. You end up in a position where you just have a really strong potent physical attacker with access to a bunch of coverage that can be stabbed due to Protean on a one-time usage. And it's just really difficult to prep for. It's also really easy to draft around. There's a reason that Masquerada is kind of being talked on the same tier as Valiant these days. And I think that's completely justified. It's a really nice piece for whatever sort of way you want to approach your draft, and I was really, really happy with it. So, we get to my round 2, and round 2 I really wanted Dragonite. Dragonite was the mon that I wanted. I haven't managed to use this thing since my first Gen 9 League, where it was actually Terra legal, so it was an absolute demon. But it went a couple picks before me, and that made me sad. So I had to pivot, and I nearly took an absolute co-pick here, which I actually managed to get later on. We'll get to that when we get there. But what I ended up grabbing was a mon that I'm kind of getting sick and tired of using, but I know how good it actually is, so I felt what's no harm in adding a 5th time this year. So I drafted Jirachi. Now, if I was sitting here mentioning all the things that Jirachi could do, this would be an hour-long draft analysis, and neither you nor I want that. So I'm just going to give you the cliff notes. It's a pixie, so of course there's 100 across the board, so a variety of different roles. Great coverage, both on the skill and special side. It's access to rocks, it's access to really nice utility in the forms of Encore, Wish, and also his Healing Wish, which I'm a massive sucker for, and which I think a lot of you know, but if you're getting used to me, I'm a massive sucker for Healing Wish. This might not be my Healing Wish, just give me full warning. Yeah, this mon is absolutely phenomenal. I've used it so often lately. Steel Psychic's just a really nice typing in this metagame, and this is the best one, which is very potent, seeing there's 3 good ones and a Bronze Ogre. It's a nice pairing to have on Masquerada because Jirachi deals with a lot of the bulky poisons that actually attempt to switch in on Masquerada to Helmet Punish. So Jirachi just kind of comes in and makes much. So, is it ideal that I'm using this thing again? Not really, but at the same time it's a mon that I'm 100% comfortable with, so I am happy out. We get to round 3, and I start to get a little bit worried about removal. That is because on the round 2 and 3 wheel, Cyclizar was taken, which means that the top 4 spinners are off the board. So I felt that I kind of needed to get in on it because I didn't want to have to rely on default completely. This is a mon that I haven't used a huge amount, but it's one of those mons that anytime I see it on Wi-Fi, it does absolutely phenomenally for itself because it's able to snowball really easily. And this is the 2nd Gen 9 starter as part of this team. So I drafted Quackleval. Now, Quackleval is just a really strong physical attacker, and with its access to Aqua Step and Moxie, a well-timed position could just give you a Dragon Dance, essentially. Which, combine that with, really nice dual stab and good coverage in the form of Triple Axle, Brave Bird, it's really hard to stop at the best of times. It's a spinner, like I said, so it's able to kind of get rid of those hazards. It doesn't want to always do it, but it can do it, and that's kind of the main thing. You combine that with its ability to get out of there in momentum forms of both U-turn and flip turn, as well as its good utility in the form of Taunt, Encore, and Roost if I need it. This is a mon that I think could be really, really good. Also pairs quite nicely with Masquerada because the two of them can just overwhelm a lot of physical walls very easily. So this put me in a really nice position 3 picks in. And the one thing that I was slightly worried about at this point was ground types. When it comes to Gen 9 draft, ground types is always important, especially because that so many different ones go quickly. And by the end of round 2, typically about 5, it's just about 6 that are gone. So there was one that I had my eye on, and I had one backup in mind. The one I had my eye on, I nearly took in round 2, but it managed to actually get back to me, which I thought was a slim chance, but I'm more than glad that it did. Because my backup was actually Gliscor, which was taken in that aforementioned Cyclizar. So that kind of made me panic. But I was in a position where I didn't need to take that ground type until round 5, because of my 3rd pick and the snake system, meaning the 4 picks between me, those 2 coaches had ground types. I didn't need to worry about them. So I needed to kind of figure out what was the best piece for my team that I needed to get. And there was kind of one obvious standout here. This is a mon that I've talked about a huge amount on the channel in terms of how annoying it is and how reliable it is in terms of being able to slap on team compositions as well. And that mon is Alomomola. Now, I don't really need to talk about Alomomola too much in terms of what it does. It clicks Wish, it clicks Flip Turn, it clicks Flip Turn again. It, sponges a bunch of hits with AV, or it's like eject button and gets on out of there, or it's boots and it's just sponging physical attacking for breakfast. It might Healing Wish, it might Aqua Jet pick off something, it might run Choice Band, shout out to J-Scurf. This thing is just really, really good. And I think for its price point of 11 points, it worked out quite nicely for my team, especially with the round 5 one I had in mind. It does give me double waters, but the 2 waters do 2 completely different things. This is my bulky water, this is kind of my pivot into almost everything. It was just a really nice glue for the team. Frees up Jirachi a little bit as well, because it doesn't have to either be Wish Passer or Healing Wish in every single game. So this just puts, it's just a good glue for this team. Made a hell of a lot of sense in my mind. And it's better than me have it than someone else. Shout out to Who. Of course, he is Mr. Alomomola. Hopefully I can kind of rectify half his success with the mon, as this is a mon that anytime I've used previously hasn't quite gone to plan. So as I said, round 5, I took a ground type, and this is a ground type that has kind of divided opinion for a hell of a long time, but it's gotten to the point where it is just really, really good now, because the fact that people realize that the typing's really nice, and it still has a lot of special and physical potency. So that mon is Landor's Incarnate. Now, Landoi is an interesting mon. Obviously, it lost Raw Polish, so it kind of lost a lot of its offensive capabilities in terms of sweeping potential, but it can still break just as well as ever, especially now that they decided to give it Nasty Plot, so it can break through the stuff that it already couldn't with Sheer Force Life Orb. This is also yet another rocker that can do fairly reliably due to its natural bulk and good typing, which has been seen with Lando T in the past. Obviously, I have no Intimidate here, but I don't mind that. I get a slightly faster mon, the 101's a nice speed tier. Like I said, can go both on the physical and special side due to its massive plethora coverage. Also has access to taunt, so if I kind of want to run a more defensive one, I can. And this has been something that's been explored a lot, because it can deal with quite a few top tiers. So this was the mon that I definitely needed for this team, and I'm really, really glad to have been able to get it. The one thing you might notice, 5 picks in, is that I'm incredibly points poor at this point. I have used the most points in the league after the first 5 picks. So I kind of needed to cheapen that down a bit, especially if I wanted to make sure I had enough budget for Terra Captains later on. So my round 6 pick is a 6-point mon, but it is a mon that's been getting a lot of traction on the showdown side of things when it comes to draft, because it has one niche, but it does that niche really, really well. And that mon is Rotom. And I think it's pretty obvious what it does. It spin blocks. It spin blocks incredibly well. It spin blocks Tusk, it spin blocks Treads, it can spin block Terrapagos, very particular means. Yeah, I'm not going to be playing it in the regular season because Novax is the one that has it, but I'm going to keep that secret name just in case. Got to keep my advantages here. So the only one it doesn't really beat the top ones is Cyclizar, and even then it's kind of it's dodgy. But this thing, really great utility. The speed tier is also perfect in terms of right between Guacamole and Jirachi. The utility, like I said, it can stat as Hex Spam, it can run screens, it is Pain Split off a low base HP stat that can just whittle things down really easily. And, it can full switch out there. Nasty Plot sets could be quite potent because it's a dual stat that can be difficult to deal with at the best times. So I was really, really happy with this pick. We've seen the success of this mon for quite a while now, and I think it just made sense for this team, especially given my budget situation. Like I said, I kind of need to be thinking about Terras, but I decided to leave that just one more pick. Because another thing that was really much of a pressing matter was my lack of a Grounded Poison. As we all know at this point, a Grounded Poison is absolutely essential because you don't want to lose to T-Spikes, but you also don't want it to be too cheap to the point where people realize, oh, your Grounded Poison is just like an obligatory 2-3 point mon that bring T-Spikes anyways, and you just feel miserable about yourself. So I did want a mon that I felt, wasn't quite at that value. I've been done dirty by that before. So I also kind of wanted another Ghost Resist at this point, because Meowscarada is not exactly the best when it comes to checking them, so having a secondary Dark type would be quite nice. It would also be good for Spikes, because Meowscarada does not need to be doing that, if it doesn't need to be. So everything just fell right in place for Overquill, and that's what I took. Overquill is one of those mons that it runs, Intimidate, Rocky Helmet, Pivot a lot of the times, where, it's kind of getting up hazards, it is clicking Pain Split, or it's clicking, kind of stabbing to do some decent enough damage. But its offensive capabilities cannot be denied. Its access to SD, Agility, and Rain Dance Swift Swim, respectively, means it's really, really scary to prep for if it's one of those things along with a bunch of other threats, which I think is the position that I'm in right now. This is a mon that I've used to good success in the past. I haven't used it for a little while, so hopefully I can kind of bring that back. And it's just a really nice mon here for a 7th mon. It's at a good price point. Leaves me in a nice position where I can get a Terra Captain situation. So yeah, just kind of ticks all the boxes that I needed in Grounded Poison. It's absolutely perfect right now. That's why I took it. So, like I said, Terra Captains was something I was going back and forth on a hell of a lot. So one that I had in mind initially was Terra Hisuian Arcanine, but Hisuian Arcanine as a mon itself got picked up during the draft, but then dropped during the mid-season period. However, I think I improved. The other option I was looking at the time was Terra Diancie and Terra Salazzle that I decided to scrap. Terra Diancie is a good mon, but the issue is kind of more so the Salazzle, where I didn't really need the speed tier, and the secondary grounded poison just kind of felt necessary. So I was kind of torn between two mons from a more expensive Terra Captain, but I knew what the cheap one was going to be, so I decided to take that one first. Enter Terra Braviary. Now, Braviary is one of those mons that I have seen do quite well, but only with like two people. Those two people being Genius X and Habita, and this was about 2 years ago. However, I still think this mon could be an incredibly potent threat that you kind of have to respect. Its access to Defiant is really, really nice because it gives me a default punish now that works quite well in my favor. The other thing that it has is access to Sheer Force Length, Body Slam, which hits ridiculously hard. Its access to Agility and Bulk Up, also it's a really potent setup threat. It already has close combat to be able to deal with the Steel and Rock types, first to stab, and Terra Blast can kind of make up for any of the other weird niches that just can't quite get the job done. It's also a defogger to give me a secondary form of removal, which is quite handy. And its bulk also just cannot be scoffed at. Also needed a secondary Scarfer quite badly in this team because I didn't want to be in a position where I had to Scarf me on a regular basis. So having another mon that's more than comfortable running Scarf put me in a nice position. And that's Braviary. You know, good mon. Hope to use it to some good success. But with my more expensive Terra Captain, I'm not sure how often we can get to use it to its full potential. Speaking of, like I said, I was torn between two at this point. The one that I didn't go with was Terra Gardevoir. A lot of that was down to just kind of the same speed tier. And while yes, the fairy type was nice, and I was also going to pair it with Terra Avalugg to kind of give me more rapid spin, I decided there was a more optimal route. And shout out to K-Crick for kind of convincing me in the error of my ways in trying to ignore this mon. Because this mon is an absolute demon. This is a mon that I actually used as a Terra Captain along with the aforementioned Terra Dragonite in my first Gen 9 league, where I kind of didn't really know what the hell I was doing because this meta was far too offensive for me at the time. So this is a mon that I have seen, you know, fall, and now it's on the rise again. I used this to phenomenal success to get a DTBA victory, and this is just one of those mons that can snowball so easily and forces so much prep, which puts me in a really good position. So, my Terra Captain for 13 points is a Spathra. Now, this mon, I think we all know the basic standards of what you'd expect this thing to do. You know, it's going to click Calm Mind, it's going to get speed boosts, and it's going to store Power Sweep with its access to Dazzling Gleam, covering all the dark types that want to store power. But this mon is so much more than that. Lumina Crash is a phenomenal move that allows for it to kind of snowball in of itself, if you're not careful. And it also, you know, kind of forces Clear Amulets or Covert Cloaks, which if they're put in the wrong mons and you switch into them, seeing as, oh, this is my Lumina Crash switch in, and you have to deal with the Calm Mind set, that puts you in a really bad position. The coverage is really good, especially with Terra. But you still kind of get some really niche like coverage options that put you in a really nice spot, so you don't have to rely on Terra Blast, which is quite nice. Its other abilities as well are not to be scoffed at. Frisk is phenomenal because information is the one thing you really want to draft, and Opportunist is just a free mirror. So I imagine there will be times where I do manage to find positions where it is the best thing to have at the time. This is a mon that is absolutely phenomenal. I've wanted to use this thing again for quite a while, and this was just the absolute perfect opportunity. It fit this team quite well in terms of giving me more natural speed that I felt I was kind of lacking, and gives me that that win condition a lot of the time, which I know Quackleval could do that, but you know, there's no harm in that. And so, this leaves me with a measly 2 points for my final pick. Now, if there's one thing I kind of wanted still, it was a natural fairy. Yes, Terra Fairy is probably the best Terra type on a Spathra, but having a fairy is quite nice because Jirachi doesn't really want to deal with a lot of the dragon types. So I did want the option of having a natural fairy. Also kind of wanted another rocker if I could get it. So I think we all know where this is going because there's one 2-point rock fairy type that I talk about a lot on this channel. And that's Carbink. Now, what does Carbink do? You know, it gets some rocks, gets some spikes. It has Iron Defense body press sets in the right matchups. Not exactly the greatest for damage output otherwise, like it's alright because it's doing stuff with Earth Power, but it's doing pitiful damage. It can also set up Trick Room, which I don't really need, but it can do that, like in a pinch, just kind of reverse any sweeping potentials. It also has access to Endeavor, which can be quite good off of its sturdy sets. And yeah, just as a 2-point mon, just does a hell of a lot of things. Can Misty Explosion as well, so it can kind of set up screens and then Misty Explosion out into one of my kind of more potent threats. So that works out quite nicely too. This is a mon that, yes, it's a 2-pointer, and it's my 10th mon, so is it really going to come that often? Who knows? But I think it's nice to have, and it does kind of make people think a little bit differently. Crap. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my draft. I think this is a really, really nice team. I don't think there's a hell of a lot that I can say is wrong with it. Like, you know, there's momentum of it out the ass. I have a lot of the stuff I want covered. You know, I have hazards options, I have physical threats, I have special threats, I have win conditions, I have pivots. I have really good pivots, actually. Look at this bloody momentum bar. It's ridiculous. And as we know, draft players love to take a U-turn. So this is the team that I'll be rocking with this season. And what you can expect from this channel is you can expect a team builder on a Saturday, and then the battle itself on Sundays. This is a league that, you know, we're working on a schedule where you're working about 2 weeks ahead of what you guys are actually seeing. So that gives me plenty of time to kind of be able to edit stuff properly. Unlike this draft analysis, which I said better because I'm fuming. But overall, this is the team that I have for this season. If you have any questions about it whatsoever, just leave it down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help me out in terms of this journey that I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with this channel, and I think this is the perfect time to kind of take that next step. That's what I want to do. Anyways, guys, I hope you've all enjoyed. I shall catch you next Saturday for Team Builder. Peace!